Welcome to the Prime Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Derek Barron. Dr. Barron interviews doctors, wellness experts, and healthcare leaders who are revolutionizing how we approach health and longevity. The Prime Health Podcast explores breakthrough science, personal and patient stories, and practical insights that are shaping the future of health and wellness. So sit back, listen in, and prepare to transform how you think about your path towards Prime Health with Dr. Barron and his special guest.
Hello, my name is Dr. Derek Barron, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Prime Health Podcast. We interview doctors, nurses, wellness experts, and healthcare leaders who are revolutionizing how we approach health and longevity. We explore breakthrough science, personal and patient stories, and practical insights that are shaping the future of health and wellness. Now, before we get into today's episode with an amazing guest, just a quick note from our sponsor, Grow Solutions. We're your growth partner for busy health and wellness professionals. We work to eliminate your biggest headaches, confusion with AI and tech and how you can implement that into help with production and growth in your business. We help you generate repeatable frameworks to help you get patients, whether they are from your local market or whether they're coming in off of the online market. And if you've ever said this to yourself, I'm too busy to grow, too slow to scale, or too overwhelmed to fix it, that's where we can step in and help you out. So feel free to just send us a chat message if you want, drop the word grow below, or send me a LinkedIn message. But let's jump into our exciting guest today, who's really the star of our podcast. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Corpus, a board-certified family physician and leading expert in integrative and functional medicine. Dr. Corpus is the founder and director of Soul of Medicine, which is going to be so cool to get into, a holistic practice dedicated to helping women navigate life's transitions with grace and empowerment. With over 18 years in medicine and extensive training in integrative and functional approaches, including a fellowship at the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine, Dr. Corpus has guided hundreds of women to heal from chronic conditions, overcome burnout, and embrace the wisdom of their bodies. She is also a 2-time TEDx speaker. That's an amazing accomplishment. An educator for practitioners through her Soul of Medicine Institute, and the author of her forthcoming book called Soul of Menopause. Dr. Corpus's unique perspective combines scientific expertise with lived experience, inspiring a new vision for women's health and well-being. So, Dr. Corpus, thank you very much for your time and welcome to the Prime Health Podcast.
Oh, thanks for the invitation, for coming on. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Now, from your bio and the research I've done on your YouTube channels, the podcast that you have as well, I was wondering what got you initially into your start or your career path into healthcare and medicine?
So my parents are both physicians. And I remember as a little kid, it was sort of not, are you going to be a doctor, but what kind of doctor are you going to be? Okay. So as a bit of a rebellious child, I was like, I don't want to be a doctor, and I tried for a really long time to not be a doctor. And so, and I think part of it was, and we see this now in medicine, and my parents would come home, like I really wouldn't really ever see them. So they were super busy and they were stressed out. It was all this administrative stuff. I remember them talking about that as a little kid. I'm like, why would I want to do this? And so, however, I loved helping people. I knew I was going to be a doctor. It was just, don't tell me to be one kind of thing. And I remember at 12, this sounds kind of weird, but I was in my bedroom and this voice or something came to me. I don't know what it sounded like, and it said, fine, you're going to be a doctor, or I'll be a doctor, but it doesn't have a name yet. And that was before integrative medicine or functional medicine was really coined. I was like 12 or something. So I knew that I was going to head down a different kind of path, but I started very traditionally, went to medical school and did my residency in family medicine. But along the way, I sort of, found my path and my passions, and was really encouraged to sort of make it my own. One thing my parents always told me to do was be unique, or authentic, as I take it now, in the expression of who you are. And so that's culminated in what what it is today. So I was definitely influenced. I mean, that was all around me. My brother's a physician too.
Wow.
And so medicine was always around me. So that wasn't ever the question. It was more of like what kind and how I was going to do my healing.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing family Thanksgiving dinner that you sit around the table and share notes. I can only imagine what you guys used to say and what you say nowadays.
That's really funny that you picked that up because, you know, here I am doing the functional stuff and I have 3 conventional, you know, relatives. And
Right.
exactly, I would say that the Thanksgiving dinners were quite interesting. Sometimes they would get heated, my medicine
Oh.
versus your medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I did learn, and we can talk about this a little later, was, I mean, there's room for all of us. You know,
Oh,
I don't do some certain things that they do, and they don't do things that I do. And I learned to not pit the two against each other, but we can all, the practicality is we all need each other in
yeah.
this whole way of healing. So
Yeah. So you went into traditional medicine as a family practitioner,
mhm.
and then you knew you had this kind of intuition when you were younger that there was something more to it. So while you were in, for however long you were in, what really made that transition from the traditional to this integrative and functional medicine? What was that triggering point?
Oh, I think it was like me being stressed out all the time, you know, in school. And I remember I was in medical school and I went to this gym and worked out, and this woman peeked her head out and she's like, "Do you want to come to yoga class?" And I'm like, okay, I had no idea what it was. But my favorite part of the yoga class was the shavasana, the sleepy part at the end. What is this? So I kept coming back, you know, and she was interesting. She learned I was a medical student. She said, "Well, hey, you know, you should read some of these books." And I know people who've changed their diet and got rid of their autoimmune disorders, or she led me to this book called Anatomy of the Spirit, which said that all illnesses were due to emotional imbalances. Now, this was back in the 90s, and I'm like, well, if
Is-
that's true, why am I studying, you know, all of this physical stuff in medical school? It sort of
yeah.
didn't really make sense. So I kept this in the closet as I was studying medicine. And so it didn't really come out, you know, confidently until I was in residency, of asking deeper questions when I was in the exam room of like, oh, you have chest pain. Hey, how about your relationships? What's the stress going on in your life? And they're like, how did
Mhm.
you know? And so, you know, I never really came out, you know, blazing with that because it was a little, you know, unconventional, if you will. Um, but when I had my own burnout, you know,
Mm.
working, kids, and it's just waking up fatigued, not knowing why, rashes all over my body, couldn't figure it
Mm.
out, you know, and I had to kind of dig deeper. And I didn't really honestly relate stress to my physical symptoms.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, who does? Doctors don't get stressed, right? We're
Correct.
fine.
Yeah.
Until my mom was like, "You're not fine." And I'm like, "I'm fine. I do yoga and I meditate." And she's like, "No." So it, at that time, and I had 2 small kids at the time, and, you know, it really hit the fan at that moment of like, I couldn't be authentic as I was telling my patients
Mm.
to, you know, manage their stress, eat better. I wasn't doing that. And inside that wasn't creating, you know, an aligned way of being. And I knew that something had to shift and change. I was working at the hospital at the time, and I quit. I put in my
Wow.
resignation. Yeah, I had a 3-year contract, and I resigned after 2 years. And it was, you know, one of those come to Jesus moments of like, you can't do this anymore. This is completely inauthentic. And, you know, the smiley face and the makeup and the high heels and the cute outfits, that wasn't enough to cover it, or the I'm fine. It just wasn't. And that became sort of my moment of, you know, recognition of, I had to do my own work, you know. And so what I know now is what I was going through was, you know, adrenal fatigue,
Mhm.
that whole HPA axis dysfunction. And that is now the basis of my practice. So I do believe that we become these wounded healers and we get initiated by the things that we need to be teaching to other people later on. And that's definitely how it came upon in my life and continues to do so.
That's good. It is unfortunate we have to walk a path to help others get off the path quicker. It's a good thing, but it's not always the best thing for us personally in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. And is that Dr. Christine Northrup's book, The Anatomy of the Spirit? Do you know
that is Carolyn Mace's book, and
that's right.
And Christiane Northrup. Yeah, she was also very much an inspiration with her back then. I mean, it was so cool. All of them were sort of in that same generation, pushing the edges of the holistic medicine and adding spirituality and emotionality into that. So I was super inspired by her as well. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. It's truly, you can see the human that's in front of you on the exam table, but it's the spirit that's behind that person. And as you get into really your business of the mind, body, soul connection, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, what do you feel is your biggest misconception that people are looking at, especially from your family perspective that you talked about, but the misconception about, primary medicine versus functional medicine or integrated medicine, especially in the role with women's health?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is that, so there's a transition like conventional to functional or functional to integrative. And what I've seen now by adding the spiritual component is that we're made of, we're like pieces of the pie. We're psychological beings, spiritual beings, emotional beings, relational beings. And the physical layer is just one part of it. It's actually the easier part. It's the caboose, not the cause. Right. And so that's what I say. So they come to me, of course, hanging up a shingle of like, hey, spiritual enlightenment or spiritual, nobody's going to really show up. Right. So that's the tangibility of it, is these symptoms that show up are the portal into something deeper. And sometimes people just are like, can you just give me the hormones, or can I just have that one test, or like, should I just do the elimination diet and that be it? I wish it were that easy. But it's not if you want, lasting, sustainable well-being. And it's interesting over the years. So I've been practicing almost 20 years. In the beginning of it, that was, gluten and dairy free. That's really cool, and my patients who I've seen like 15 years ago, shifted their lives that way. But in the last maybe 5-6 years, people come into me and, they go, something's wrong. Something else is up. I think there's some spiritual thing going on, or I want to get to the root cause, or I think it's my relationship or my job, or, the traumas that have finally come to a head that I have to deal with. Those are very different things, that we're dealing with now, especially, with social media and people wanting to get in this whole holistic realm, and they have access to all of this information. It's pretty cool. So we have to look at the human, the being, that way. And even if it's a supplement and natural, it's still band-aiding somewhat of the problem. So that's the misconception. You want the functional doctor. It's really cool to have her, and it's like, I push a little bit. It's like, what else is going on? Can't you just give me the supplement? Like, I could, but do you want to really know what the root cause is? And I have some people say, can you just tell me a little bit of the truth, not the whole truth?
The truth is, it took them a while to get into that position. And
Yes.
if they really want the quick fix, it's going to take them a while to get out of that position. And they're very fortunate that they go into an amazing practitioner like yourself and be educated and be given a path along the way, especially because you work, I'm sure you do see men, but it seems like your focus is on women, which is a great thing. So many women in healthcare feel unseen or unheard, especially in those transitions to menopause. I can't specifically speak to that, but can you share more about that in that transition of where women are changing their lifestyles, which is really happening from the inside out?
Through menopause, do you mean?
Yes, correct. Excuse me. Yes.
So, so I had recently gone through menopause, this perimenopausal period in the last maybe 5 years. And although I had been doing bioidentical hormone replacement and treating women going through menopause, which I loved, it surprised me that I was actually good. One day I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in menopause, like literally hit me like that. And I realized that it was more than just this transition of, cessation of menses, but there were shifts and changes, and that's the whole point of it. So I went through a divorce, I switched the way that I was practicing, and, moved, and it's just a lot of things that happen, and it sucked at the time. But now what I realize is that, the first 50 really are about serving others, what others want. We know what, they need and want, and we're ready and willing to give it. The next 50 really is about our authenticity and what our preferences are. And that transition, which I say is menopausal or midlife, we're breaking down those societal conditioning things and like trying to figure out who we are, right? Which is letting go of a lot of the things that we've been socialized to do, which for many women, it's seeking approval, validation, and praise, and suppressing a lot of our emotions, including anger and rage, which aren't normal and healthy, right? And so, but, I have a lot of women come in and like, there's something wrong with me. I'm like starting to like say things that I believe in, nobody likes it. I'm like, that's great, and they want a medication or check their labs that something is really wrong, and that's part of the way we've been socialized in medicine is pathologizing this transition of menopause, and it's really a sacred time for a woman to start developing her voice and her power, because menopause gets a woman from sort of that motherhood, from the maid and the mother, into the crone, which is the wise woman. And back in the day, in an indigenous culture, she's revered. I mean, she's the leader of the community. People, including men, go to her for her wisdom. And I can't say that that's, the way it is in this time, in even in the States. We're missing out on a woman's wisdom. And this world would be absolutely different if she were revered in that way.
Yeah, very true. Great points. And you said crow as in
Crone.
CROW, correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. I love that. It's very interesting from, traditional medicine for a physician to think about that truly speaks to the integrity of yourself, because I think most patients believe they have an organ problem, which you were saying. Modern medicine says if you have a problem, it's from an organ, it's from something that broke down. And that it's true a lot of the times. But there is so much that it's the person's intuition. It's them growing along the way and changing, and then them realizing, as you're saying, transitioning to a different space and time and how that affects them. And I think that, again, speaks to your mind, body, soul connection. So that's very good. I guess I would say from hearing how you speak, you go beyond what you can see in front of you. So what role does empathy, intuition, sensitivity play in healing, and why are they often overlooked?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that whole thing about being, in the brain and having control over that. In trauma, that's kind of what we do. We get disembodied and we go intellectual and cognitive so that we don't feel. So if we feel, and again, feeling and emotions are pathologized, and particularly for a physician to have an emotion, or a practitioner to cry in front of their patients, or with their patients for that matter, looks like a weakness, when in fact that is such a strength. And so, I remember as a resident, I would get in trouble all the time for staying, consoling my patients, and and I was always late in the clinic, and I didn't really understand how one could not relate to another human being and sit and learn their stories and figure out who they were and relate to them. And to me, that's when one can be relational first. That's when the healing starts. That's when the intuition starts to pour in. And that in itself is healing, because honestly, how this thing all started really was because the patient, the person was not attuned to, which, by the way, is, one of the definitions of trauma. The true trauma is really that it's not what happens inside of us or to us, but what happens inside of us. We're not heard, we're not seen, we don't matter. And that carries on to our adulthood, which, by the way, then activates our adrenals and our nervous system, which causes the inflammation and decreases our immune system, which is the basis of every illness, right? So that whole idea of root, keep backing it up and up and up and up. And so, and it takes time to peel that onion, and because one has to feel safe in being able to do that, right? So I think it's such a lost art to be able to tap into that, and it's so needed.
Yeah, very much so. So from a perspective, when, let's just say a woman, age of menopause, wherever that range is for them when they come in, when you were treating them traditionally versus when they come into your practice, how does that differ? In other words, how is the approach in Soul of Medicine different for that patient coming in your doors today?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because earlier on in my practice, it was like, okay, let's check your hormones, or maybe you need some thyroid hormone. It was purely physical. It was definitely something's off. I wasn't a big SSRI prescriber or, go to a therapist, that kind of thing. Like, there was a true pathology. So now it's like, yeah, girl, of course. Now, that, so, I explained it sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of need: food, shelter, clothing. Yes, you have to sleep. Yes, you have to have a bowel movement. Yes, your hormones need to be balanced. We'll check that. That's okay. But that tip top of self-actualization is where we're headed. So, and you need to have your energy up to kind of figure out, because do you want the first 50, the next 50 to be like the first 50? And they're like, hell no. I'm like, okay, there's some work to do. What you're going through is totally okay, and it's wonderful. So let's, it's more of that. So the way that I say it is like, when you're flying and the pilot's like, okay, we're going to, keep the seatbelt sign on. You're going to hit a little bit of turbulence, maybe 10 minutes, then we're smooth sailing. That is awesome versus crickets. We're up there and we're like, are we going to die in a fiery inferno? You know what I mean? Just tell me what's up and what's going on, how long it may last, and what could be happening and what I can do about it. And I'm good. And most women just want that. Just tell me I'm going to be fine. Tell me I'm going to be okay. Tell me this is going to be temporary and not forever, because that's really what's going on in their minds.
Yeah. All too often the diagnosis, I don't want to throw this out, but the diagnosis previously would have been fatigue, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. Sure, people do experience that stuff, but that truly means that you weren't digging deep enough to find out what's really going on inside of that person. That's right. From the soul, from the body. And I'm sure that you approach that differently as well.
Yeah. So, the pain is a portal. It's telling us something. What is your body saying right now? And, sometimes that's not always in the first visit. Sometimes it's purely like, okay, let's look at your labs. And when I sort of have that in, or there's that openness, we go there. But I realize that healing takes time. The person has to be ready, has to feel safe. And I can't really push that, that whole self-actualization. Believe me, I have. And people are just like, can you just give me my supplements and my medication, because I wanted it for them. And that's really not, they're on their own path. So,
yeah. Great point, Doc. So for women that may feel burnt out, they've got the adrenal fatigue issues that are going on. They're disconnected from their bodies. What's the first step that you would recommend when they do come into your practice?
Yeah. So, we do a full history, see where they are. Oftentimes I will talk about what's going on in your life and relate it to the physical symptoms. So we do testing. For example, I'll check, all the full panels of the thyroid, adrenals, gut, and sex hormones. That's where I start. We look at labs, interpret them, and then, make some suggestions. So I think about it like, okay, so we can infuse all these great things, but we also need to plug the holes that's happening. So if you want to drive to California from Kentucky, we need to fill up your gas tank, but ensure that what we're giving you or what you're taking in is being held so that your gas or your wellness can be sustained. So I asked them, what are those holes in your life? Where are you leaking that energy? It could be relationally, the job. It's like, okay, you don't have to do anything about it now, but I just want you to observe, and you may feel it in your body of where you're draining. And is it possible to maybe start to plug those things? They know everything that we talk about. These women they've always known. So I don't say anything really that they haven't thought of before.
Love it. So I'm going to jump to some patient care things in a second, but I want to ask a few questions, practitioner kind of, business perspective.
Yep.
Have you noticed an increase in demand for patients wanting more of the integrative and functional medicine approach in the last 2, 3, 5 years?
Absolutely. I mean, they are, frustrated with the system. They've had all the tests. They've gone through it all. It's more because they know that something else is going on and they haven't felt better. And I will say too, it's also in the functional world. So this is where this spiritual and emotional component comes in, that they've, paid out thousands of dollars, had all the sexy tests and been on all the supplements, and they're still tired. So we're sort of getting that in the last maybe 2 or 3 years of that distinction of it just being physical. So adding those other components or realizing that, to me, has made the shift and the change. People want it. They just know if there's, what else are we going to do? So
It's the days of medicine being directed and not advancing are away. We are learning every day with that, and that's for the benefit of the patients. And it's not just, they can still check Dr. Google, but Dr. Google isn't quite good, nor is ChatGPT, in getting the emotional component, which I think you've got a great blend of that with your patients.
Yeah.
So where do you see a majority of your patients from? Are they locally, or do you see them from a telemedicine standpoint?
Both. So, I have a lot of local patients. I'm in Kentucky. I see some from Indiana and surrounding states. I have some on the East Coast, West Coast, internationally as well. So,
okay, fantastic. What do you attribute your businesses, your practices' success to?
I think it's more of, here in Kentucky, it's interesting because being a little bit more cutting edge here in Kentucky and kind of being, as I started when I was little, be authentic, be, different, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I hear a lot of patients say, thank you for doing this because it's really courageous, when the hospital's just right across the street, or, you know what I mean? It's not like the easiest route. I don't have a waiting room full of patients, and I don't want that either. It is, and I tell other practitioners this too, it is courageous to go out in this world and sort of do it on your own, going against, mainstream sort of stuff, or the easiest route, or what will make you the most money. Being authentic and having the passion and working it yourself. I think that's a lot of it too, of a lot of the stuff that I put on social media is my own experiences. I don't tell anybody something that I haven't done. I wouldn't even know how to do that, and as far as men's health, you mentioned that. So my partner does men's health. I used to do that, and I just sound like a naggy mom or naggy partner. I'm like, I can't do this. I need a man who's having those guy issues, talk to a man, that's relatable. That's that relatable piece, which I think is very important in coaching and in healing. So if I can't relate, I don't think it's really going to do much good. So
there's a bit that's missing in there. From your practice, what are you currently focusing on right now? Where do you see the focus for your practice?
So right now it is menopause and that transition. We do see, I have a lot of people coming in for hormones. So we're sort of, hormone optimization sort of practice. I mean, that's our favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do, my podcast is The Soul of Menopause, my book, The Soul of Menopause. So in my TEDx talks. So I'm really focusing in on that right now, because it needs a voice, it needs a platform, and just having come through that and connecting with women in that way, I think, I'll be in that niche for a little while.
You'll have a few patients sitting there, for you when you need it, which is
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
In the day-to-day aspects of running the practice, what takes most of your time?
Yeah. So, answering. So the way my practice is set up, we see new patients. We also have maintenance patients. So, we're answering their questions, getting their labs, interpreting those, fielding a lot of those right now. And then I want to say it's a lot of doing my own work. I mean, my team and I, we really don't start until about 10 o'clock, because not because we're not up, we're up early, but we're meditating, we're journaling, we're doing all of those things and focusing, and then getting on to see patients, and then stopping at a reasonable time to integrate out of the day. I mean, honestly, I really do think that that's so important, that my team gets their break, gets their all self-care things, completed before we hit patient care.
Yeah. I love that you start being centered in yourself, because I think that's the best way you're going to be able to help the patients that you see by, we have baggage that we take into work. It's nice to try and let that go away and be focused on the patient that's in
Absolutely.
front of you when you
Yes.
do that. So can you tell us, you mentioned your upcoming book, can you tell us about the soul of menopause, and what do you want readers to take away from that once they read it?
Yeah, so it's sort of this part memoir, part guidebook, and I wanted to share my own story and the messy parts and all of that, but also give women tools, not just physical tools, but also this, what is the meaning really of menopause from a spiritual perspective, emotional perspective, psychological perspective. It's a transition, something that is a sacred, you know, passage. I had a woman look at my book at the cover, and it was me smiling in this white dress with flowers, and she's like, I really don't understand what the woman on the front cover is doing. It's called Soul of Menopause. And I said, that's me. And she's like, oh, that was so odd. She's like bewildered. And my menopause was horrible. So I don't really understand the cover of that book. And so that's the point, is that to give another perspective of, what menopause could be, what it was, and, and maybe some healing around that. So that was such a stark, it doesn't have to suck, or be
Mhm.
pathologized for that matter. And I hope that women reading it feel less alone and realize that menopause can be this actual doorway to something deeper, this time to really reclaim the parts of herself that they may have lost, along the way. So really it's about seeing this season as this initiation and not a decline or a pathology.
I love that. What a wonderful approach from him. I saw one of your Facebook posts that you said that you should have a menopause support team. Can you dive a little bit deeper into what that would look like?
Yeah. So, for instance, having the physician or your primary care handling some of those physical issues, also a therapist or a body worker. I refer a lot to myofascial release therapists, lymphatic drainage, practitioners, somatic therapists, because it is this transition. I think of it as this kind of releasing and letting go. And we want a team of people who can support us. It doesn't have to be this one person, and I don't pretend to know everything. And, when we're sharing this, and it's really fun working with my other female practitioners of really helping the woman feel held, so I would encourage your board of directors or your healing team for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
I love that. I love that approach. What's in all of your experience from traditionally to how you've transitioned into the functional integrative, is there something that you wish women knew from the start that would help them as they head into the menopause age? So is there one thing you wish, one, maybe two things that you wish every woman knew?
Yeah. So you're okay. Everything is fine. You've always known. Trust yourself, trust your intuition. Um, it really is this moment about learning how to love ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we're not really taught. And I'm not talking pedicures and manicures and massages. It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror and loving who you see despite the all the things, the mistakes and the messiness and all of that, right? And you're not alone, and this is purposeful. So find your team, find your group of women, and it's something that's necessary to help us transition into who we're meant to be. It's almost this caterpillar cocoon butterfly moment, and perimenopause and menopause is that cocoon where it's cold, wet, dark, and lonely. And there's a lot of transformation happening, disintegration, and forming. And I love that the cocoon has these imago cells, imago meaning image in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
So it contains the image of the butterfly, although it's not yet a butterfly. So it takes time. And so one day it'll be a beautiful butterfly, and it's amazing.
Yeah. All too often in life and in practice, people don't see the struggles that help you build who you've become. And when you just made that statement that it's cold, dark, scary, that's not a place anybody wants to be. And again, I can't speak to that as a man. My wife can speak to some of that stuff. Hopefully I'm there that can help her once in a while when she needs it, not telling her what to do, but asking, how can I help? So I'm sure you share that. Meditation play a role in how you treat some of your patients?
Oh, absolutely. So if that's what they want to call it, and I sort of have gotten away of like, you have to get on your yoga mat and your meditation pillow and sit there for 20 minutes and breathe. You know, Watching a sunset, you meditate.
Mm.
Holding your grandkid, you meditate. It's about just being present and in the moment, and I think we have all these things around what it should look like and what it should be. And, I kind of tease them like, who invented meditation? They obviously didn't have a job or kids, to get to. So, whatever it looks like for you, it's a very personal, thing, just sitting outside and breathing, just stopping for a moment, gardening,
Mhm.
art, whatever it is that's meditation. So yes.
Good. I think it's unique to each of them.
Mhm.
Through your work with your patients in the menopause, can you share a success story of, one that stands out to you of the patients that you've had come through your doors?
Yeah. And I mean, and I think one in particular, we'd worked for her for a while. She had come in with kind of the cardiometabolic, things, the blood sugars, the blood pressure. We worked on that for a little while. And of course, she was on hormone replacement and the thyroid stuff and managing her diet. And as we started peeling the layers, she started understanding more about what was stressing her out, her true beliefs of, I'm not good enough, that kind of stuff coming up. And she was a university professor. I mean, very
Mm.
accomplished and amazing, intelligent woman. Sometimes women carry that wound. All of us do, of that not enoughness.
Mhm.
And finally, she would keep us updated on all her travels. And finally, she realized, that she was tired of hiding,
Mm.
and she just, let herself be authentic in who she was. She created this new style for her, stop wearing the wigs, and she had, some alopecia, and she was like, forget it. I'm done. She was in Italy, and looking at all the art, and she just transformed herself. And she's like, I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of it. And this is who I am. I'm a little afraid to be out there with people, but I'm ready, and it was so gorgeous And, you can't really teach that to people or give that to somebody in a supplement, and I think a lot of what I do and we try to do in the practice is stand along with you, kind of walk along beside you, and just kind of say, keep walking, even though you don't know where you're going. And sort of this protective bubble and having your, goals in mind. And I think to me, that's been, the greatest lesson as a practitioner is just the patience, the love, acceptance, and time. And eventually it comes, and you get beautiful, butterfly emerging stories just like that. And that's just, you're in it for the long haul with your patients. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Now, the truth is that more than likely would not happen in traditional medicine. That woman would still be stuck in that shell and she'd never come out. So that's got to be a rewarding feeling, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And sometimes in conventional medicine, it's just like you're changing the meds around and, you're always there as the doc helping them. But I find that, there's a difference between just giving the meds and sustaining somebody that way than transforming. And so that's what I'm interested in, the potential for this transformation. And that takes a container, it takes, a bit to hold that container for somebody to be able to do that for themselves. That I can't do that for them. You can't do that for them, So, yeah.
Yeah. Love it. So from a differentiator standpoint of people that are out in the community, I know that your focus is on menopause, but what do you feel that you do better than any other practitioner that's out there for the women that you bring into your practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're pretty comprehensive. It's one thing to tolerate all the holistic stuff. I think it takes compassion and comprehension. And so I think we have the best of both worlds of, my team. I have a functional pharmacist on staff. I have health and wellness coaches and nutrition coaches, and myself, who's an MD. We have the science behind it, but we also have the other stuff. We know the spirituality and how to be trauma informed, and bringing people to that spiritual piece. So it's sort of that, to me, is what holistic is, that wholeness of a person, the depth of a person. So I think we have that's what makes us different. I think that we can comprehend and practice and acknowledge all the parts of somebody.
Dr. Corpus, what's the vision for your practice in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I think my biggest vision is being able to teach this work to other practitioners. That's always probably been my biggest vision. Having to practice clinical medicine, again, you can't teach somebody what you haven't done, right? So I think as of now, we know all the nooks and crannies of how to run a practice like this. And, and I think this world needs more practitioners who are brave and courageous enough to speak this way. And again, it's like, you're fine, you're okay. I think being a mentor in that way has always been a really important, goal of mine, and I think having community around practitioners, sometimes we feel like we're alone in doing this work and nobody else is doing it and nobody else understands. And, I know maybe you have felt this way. I definitely have. And I think having a big, global network of like, this is the way medicine needs to be practiced and it's okay. And you're safe in doing so, or, run it by us. And I had a mentor, like old school, sitting at the knee kind of thing. We don't have that anymore. And just running cases daily by them and asking what I think and why I think that way. This is post residency, post, fellowship too. And being a new attending back then was so amazing. And I would hope to give that also to other practitioners.
Love it. I can't wait to hear more about that from you. So if we'll put a bunch of the links in the show notes, but how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, kcorpusmd.com, social media, Facebook, Instagram, on all the others, LinkedIn, so kcorpusmd. So yeah, shoot us a message and be happy to connect.
Love it. Before I wrap this up, is there anything else you would like to say as a going away gift to our listeners and viewers?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have lots of resources on our social media site, on our through the podcast, on our website. So, people are welcome to avail of that. And I just, want to thank you for doing this work and getting our voices out there and talking more about this, because I think it's really, important for practitioners and patients to hear this, so
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's important to me because as a man that's happily married to my wife, I've got a wonderful mother, a wonderful sister. I can't do what you can do, probably don't want to, but I can't do how you can connect with them. I think it's so important that a female has a friend in healthcare going along the way. And I think what you're doing, Dr. Corpus, is wonderful. From your journey that you've come through from traditional medicine to now functional and integrative medicine, you have the ability to pull both of those together. It's a great encompassing component. And I think people understand that this message that you're sharing today, whether it's from our podcast or your podcast, it needs to be shared. It's not just about you and I getting our word out. It's about that person that's having coffee with someone this morning that listens to this podcast or another one and says, you know what? I need to take care of myself. I do feel off. I need to do something different about that. So I would ask people that watch this, if you find value, please do share it. Again, it's for you, but it's for the friend or family member that can really benefit from it. So from the Prime Health Podcast, of course, please subscribe. We love it if you're watching on YouTube. Please hit that like and the bell so you're notified. But until next time, remember that we're all on this path of true wellness. It's a journey that we're trying to help each other get there together. Whether you're taking charge of your own health or guiding others through theirs, every step forward matters. Again, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.